Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I'm really glad you're here today because we're diving straight into some absolutely transformative concepts from the ROFA Academy. We're talking about relational recovery, specifically how past trauma and, past abandonment can act as this hidden fuel for relationship sabotage today. If you've ever wondered why you or maybe someone you know instinctively pulls back right when things get close, well, you are definitely in the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. It's a pretty heavy question, isn't it? Why on earth do we sabotage new connections? Think about it. When a new, genuinely healthy relationship finally starts to form, why is our knee-jerk reaction so often to just push that person away? I mean, on the surface, it makes zero sense. But as we'll see through the lens of this curriculum, it's actually an incredibly deep, ingrained survival mechanism. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the roots of sabotage, avoidance versus bonded styles, the danger of risky thoughts, mapping your triggers, and finally, tools for relational recovery. This structured journey from past wounds to future tools is really going to lower our cognitive load and help us grasp the whole recovery process. All right, starting off with Section 1, the roots of relational sabotage. To really understand the sabotage that happens in the present, we've got to look backward first. The Academy's facilitator, Valerie, explains that living in a deeply unsafe or fatherless environment naturally conditions you, right? When a child learns what they see, whether that's abuse, tragedy, or just a constant string of broken relationships, they begin to literally expect brokenness everywhere. To survive that, they build up this thick, protective shell. Guarded distrust basically becomes their baseline reality. Valerie actually shared her own deeply personal experience with this, saying, "I made this silent vow to myself that I never trust anybody like that." And I want to ground our psychological concepts in this exact lived empathetic reality today. This isn't just a textbook theory. This is about real people making conscious or even subconscious choices just to survive their environments. When people consistently let you down, you make a vow to never let them get close enough to do it again.
Which brings us to Section 2, avoidance versus bonded styles.
So the crucial point is that this vow of distrust dictates virtually every interaction we have, essentially splitting us into two primary relational styles. On one hand, you have the avoidance style. This is rooted in feeling unaccepted. It makes you strike back, push people away, and build these towering guarded walls so nobody can ever hurt you again. On the flip side, we have the bonded style. This means feeling accepted and connected, actually allowing yourself to form secure, trusting bonds over time. It's literally the difference between living your whole life on the defensive versus living an actual, genuine connection. You can actually see this raw, handwritten note straight from the Academy's curriculum that literally diagrams this exact shift, going from an avoidance style to a bonded style. This is the absolute core of their relational recovery goal. It's all about moving a person from that terrible isolation of feeling not accepted to the profound, life-changing safety of feeling connected. But how do we get so stuck in avoidance in the first place? That takes us right into Section 3, the danger of risky thoughts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the scribbled margin note that says, "Fear abandonment leads to sabotage relationships." That's the why right there. Because you are so utterly terrified of being left, you preemptively destroy the connection yourself. You're basically controlling the narrative by ending it before the other person even has a chance to. The Academy calls the fuel for this whole fire risky thoughts. These are cognitive distortions that flat out trick your brain. They take the trauma of yesterday, the doors of yesterday, if you will, and incorrectly apply it to the reality of today. They essentially force you to look at a brand new, totally safe relationship through the broken, unsafe lens of your past. And these risky thoughts often take some very specific forms. Things like telling yourself you are trapped, or abandoned, or I'm gonna fall again, I'm too much, or simply that you are alone. Valerie makes such a brilliant point here. Telling yourself you are all alone is incredibly dangerous. Why? Because if you are completely alone with just your own isolated, traumatized mind, well, you are in really bad company. Your mind will literally lie to you just to protect you. To combat this, the curriculum offers this vital truth. Doors of yesterday are closed forever. Each moment is new, unique, passing. This requires a massive cognitive pivot, guys. You have to realize that the past does not dictate your current situation. You haven't never been at this exact age and this exact moment with this exact person ever before. The past is closed, period. All right, moving on to Section 4, mapping your triggers. Now, moving from just understanding these thoughts into actual practical application, that's messy. Valerie shared an incredibly authentic anecdote to really illustrate this. She was in Kensington, an area heavily impacted by addiction, and she sat down on the ground to pray with a woman. Suddenly, the woman just lit up a crack pipe right there. Valerie noted that she was completely caught off guard and uncomfortable. Her heart raced, she started sweating. It just proves that real-world triggers do not happen in a sterile vacuum. They are sudden, messy, and completely unexpected. Let's move to and see how this builds using the curriculum's step-by-step trigger worksheet. First, you identify the trigger situation. Second, you name the emotion you felt. Third, note your body sensation, like that racing heart or sweating. Fourth, track your thoughts. And fifth, look at your resulting behavior. By mapping this whole thing out, you essentially hit pause on the instinct to sabotage, and instead, you analyze what is actually happening in your nervous system. A massive part of mapping this out is understanding that anger is almost always a secondary emotion. The curriculum takes this stance of empathetic objectivity here. It normalizes our emotional dysregulation by recognizing that sudden, explosive anger is usually just a mask. It's this loud alarm bell covering up a much deeper hurt, maybe a fear of rejection, or just a profound sense of not mattering at all. Which really begs the question, what is underneath the why? If someone blows up and, say, starts kicking a broken washing machine, they aren't truly that angry at a metal box, right? You have to look past the surface-level explosion to find the actual risky thought driving the behavior. What deep fear of being trapped, abandoned, or unheard was just triggered in that moment? And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Tools for Relational Recovery. So how do we actually stop this sabotage cycle and build that secure, bonded style? It starts with a simple but remarkably difficult truth from the curriculum. You must seek out encouraging and supportive people and strictly avoid those who only drag you down. Relational recovery is completely impossible in a vacuum, and it's equally impossible if you're surrounded by people who just reinforce your avoidance. You absolutely have to consciously choose environments that foster connection. There's also this highly effective, specific linguistic tool for validation. When I feel blank, that makes sense because blank. When you or a partner get triggered, using this exact formula validates the emotion perfectly without letting you stay stuck in it. And this brilliantly illustrates how we lower our defenses. Instead of asking yourself, why am I being so crazy? You say, when I feel terrified of this new relationship, that makes sense because I was abandoned in my last one. See how that works? Filling in those blanks instantly lowers your shame. It acknowledges the past trauma while actively bridging the gap to a bonded style in the present. Ultimately, the goal of relational recovery isn't to just pretend the past didn't happen. Not at all. It's to keep the dark past as a contrast to a brighter future. We don't ignore where we came from. Instead, we use that darkness to illuminate exactly how far we've come and how much we've truly grown. Which leaves us with this final, essential thought to reflect on today. What doors of yesterday do you personally need to close forever so you can stop sabotaging and start bonding today? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look at relational recovery has been as fascinating and empowering for you as it has been for me. See you next time.